Imagine your closest friend moves away to a distant city. What happens to your relationship? Do you slowly drift apart, or do ties grow stronger? If you lose touch, people will nod and say, well, out of sight, out of mind. But if your bond stays strong, those same people will smile and tell you, distance makes the heart grow fonder. We use two completely opposite sayings to explain the exact same starting point. This is a perfect example of hindsight bias. We wait to see what actually happens, and then we lazily select the piece of folk wisdom that fits the outcome. We explain the behavior after the fact, pretending the result was inevitable. That kind of post-game guesswork is how we usually navigate social situations. Psychologists don't rely on gut feelings, and they aren't astrologers or palm readers making vague predictions. Our everyday intuition is highly unreliable. To figure out the actual mechanics of human behavior, we have to test our assumptions using rigorous, data-driven science. Take a look at a 1975 study by psychologist Carol Dweck. She wanted to figure out how to help children who gave up too easily when trying to solve difficult math problems. Common sense suggests a clear strategy. Give those kids a steady stream of easy problems first. They will succeed, their confidence will rise, and then they will be ready to tackle harder challenges. Dweck tested this by dividing the students into two groups. The first group spent 25 days solving only easy math problems, succeeding every single time. The second group received a mix of easy and difficult problems. Naturally, they failed the hard ones. When they did, Dweck told them they hadn't tried hard enough, coaching them to keep pushing. At the end of the training, both groups were given a new, highly difficult test. This chart illustrates what happened next. As you can see, the group that only trained on easy problems gave up significantly faster when they finally hit a wall. The students shielded from failure crumbled under pressure. Dweck found that the group taught to attribute their failure to a lack of effort, rather than a lack of innate ability, actually built lasting resilience. Our baseline assumption about building confidence proved actively harmful to the students. That is why psychologists use the hypothetico-deductive model, posing a specific theory and rigorously testing it with empirical data to separate what feels true from what is true. But studying math scores is one thing. If psychology is going to operate as an objective science, it needs a way to measure an entirely invisible concept like the human mind. Researchers do this by targeting three specific variables. The first is behavior. These are our direct responses to environmental stimuli. That can mean an overt action, like blinking when a ball is thrown at you, or a covert reaction, like your muscles tensing up during a stressful chess match. The second target is mental processes. To study this, psychologists look at the relationship between physical brain activity and the mind. The brain is the biological hardware, while the mind is the system that emerges from our dynamic interactions with the world. You can see this distinction clearly in medical anomalies. In one documented case, an amateur athlete lost his arm in a motorcycle accident, yet his mind remained entirely intact. He still felt his phantom arm reaching out toward a coffee cup, and he verbally protested when someone pulled the mug away. The final target is human experience. This is our subjective internal awareness. Riding a crowded, hot bus feels incredibly uncomfortable if you're commuting to work, but feels entirely different if you are on your way to a picnic with close friends. The external conditions shape the internal reality. To genuinely understand a person, psychologists triangulate all three of these variables. They observe the outward actions, map the physical brain mechanics, and analyze the subjective reality the individual reports. Curious tone. Today, the discipline approaches these questions through two parallel lenses. The first is psychology as a natural science. Researchers use advanced biological imaging, mapping real-time neural activity to trace exactly where and how specific thoughts occur in the physical body. The second lens operates as a social science, focusing on how our environment dictates our actions. For instance, observing how a severe village flood suddenly causes normally distant neighbors to open their homes and share resources, proving that our socio-cultural context constantly scripts our behavior. Reaching this dual approach took decades of intense debate. The formal starting line was in 1879, when Wilhelm Wundt established the first experimental laboratory in Germany, asking his subjects to introspect and map the structural components of their own conscious thoughts. That introspective method was quickly challenged by new perspectives, most notably when Sigmund Freud argued that our behavior is actually driven by deep, unconscious desires that we completely lack awareness of. From those early debates, the field evolved to address the highest stakes of our existence. Psychologists now analyze what experiences can manipulate young men into seeking revenge and turning to terrorism, while simultaneously studying the immense psychological resilience that drives a soldier, paralyzed from the waist down, to successfully conquer Mount Everest. The human mind is incredibly complex, full of contradictions, and capable of both massive destruction and unbelievable endurance. Replacing lazy folk idioms with rigorous scientific inquiry is the most effective tool we have for figuring out who we are and how we relate to each other.